Am I live? Yes, I'm live. Hello. It's Monday morning. Well, yes, it's still morning. Just after 11. 11:11, in fact. I'm reading out of Scarlet Feather. That's a book about a long, long time ago, a tribe in the west of America. And it's a story about Raki and Piyannah. Piyannah is the daughter of Nakachi, a chief in the tribe of the two trees. Our mother has passed away, and Raki's mother also does not live anymore. And this is a story about a change of rules, a change of old tradition. And Joan Grant was a seer. She was writing books about her far memories. She was born in 1907 and she passed in 1989. So this is the story about these two outcasts who are now with Piyannah's father's tribe. And what they really want to achieve is that male and female rule a tribe as joint chiefs together, and their intention is to build a new tribe where they will learn how to run it. Part 3 is entitled Brown Feathers. Now that Raki and I were young braves, Nakachik said that we could undertake the ordeals of the brown feathers without waiting until we were 17. We hated being separated even more than we had done before the birch grove, so we accepted his offer eagerly. It might reduce the last year we must stay apart by several moons, and the brown feathers had the right to claim his squaw. The brown feather had the right to claim his squaw. The ordeals had to be undertaken alone, although the training for them was in company. I did not recognize how much I relied on the presence of Gorky or any of the others until I discovered how much more difficult it was to drive myself beyond what had seemed the limit of my endurance, or to make myself choose the more difficult of two ways up a cliff, without having someone to share his courage with me. And I knew it was not only their courage I wanted, but their admiration. The swift reward of pride felt by a friend, or the envy of someone who still refused to accept me as an equal. The first ordeal sounded very easy, if someone else did it. To take a canoe upstream as far as one could travel in 3 days. A brown feather watched your progress, but you never saw him. Dare you collapse exhausted, or was Dorok watching, ashamed because you displayed this weakness? We had many other tests of endurance in canoes, but always a definite landmark had been assigned, which must be reached in a given time. Knowing the distance, you could say, only one more bend of the river, only 200 more strokes, only 100 before I can drop into the deep sleep that follows hard endurance. But now I should not know how much was expected of me. Would I dare to sleep a quarter of the time between sunrise and sunrise, or must it be a much briefer rest than this? If I went too far on the first day, should I be so tired on the third that I made little progress, and so betrayed that I had not learned how to use my strength to the best advantage? Raki had completed this ordeal and returned to the encampment the night before I was to start, but Dorok forbade me to see him, so I had no idea how far he had been. I left at dawn and did not reach a rapid until the evening. The canoe was heavy to carry alone on the portage, but the bank shelves gently and gave firm footholds. This was further than I had ever before reached in one day, so I decided it would be safe to eat some of the bread and pemmican I had brought with me, and then to rest until moonrise. The river was low, for the autumn rains had not yet begun, so by keeping close to the bank, where the current was sluggish, I could drive the canoe steadily forward. Only the even beat of my paddle broke the stillness. To keep the strokes at an even pace, I listened to one of Norok's drum rhythms inside my head. It would have been a waste of breath to sing aloud. There was a long stretch of river through open country, and the moon laid a path for me to follow over the black water. Sometimes a fish rose with a splash, or a coyote barked in the distance. Then again there would be only the faint sigh of my paddle leaving the water. I slept in the canoe for a little while before dawn. I had tried it to the bank, intending to sleep on the ground, but the grass was sodden with dew, and I should not find any other shelter from the chill wind. I wish I'd brought a second tunic to sleep in, even though its extra weight might have delayed me, for I was too cold to sleep properly. After sunrise I went on upstream. The canoe seemed heavier at the next portage, perhaps because my feet kept on slipping in the loose gravel beside the rapid, or else my arms were getting tired. By noon I was so sleepy that I tied the canoe to a tree which overhung the water and dived until I felt more refreshed. I made myself chew some pemmican, though I was not hungry, and then lay on the sun-hot rock, longing to go to sleep, but knowing that if I did so, it would be sunset before I woke. If someone had been with me, we could have slept in turn while the other watched, and this would have made the journey much easier. Again I allowed myself to sleep until moonrise, but when I woke, the moon was high, and I knew precious time had been wasted. Still half blind with sleep, I stumbled down the bank and dragged the canoe into the water. The paddle was heavy, as though it were made of cedar instead of birch. It was difficult to keep my strokes at an even rhythm, and several times I veered off the course, and I knew I had lost several paces of distance in needless effort. A scream tore through the dark woods. "It's only a badger," I said aloud. But did a badger ever make a noise like that? A noise like a child in pain or terror? I wanted to reach the next bend, which would hide me from the source of the noise. I quickened my stroke. The moon was obscured by clouds, and only a fitful silver broke the darkness. I knew I ought to rest, but I kept on, to avoid going near the woods that suddenly held terror for me. I could not land on the far side of the river, for a low cliff fell sheer into deep water where the current was swift. The canoe jarred against something and nearly capsized. "Of course it is only a submerged log," I said loud. "You are not a squaw who believes in water demons. You did not see a hand clutch at the brow, Piyannah. It was only a shadow. It was not a hand. If you think it was, you must be dreaming." The sound of my voice scolded me only made the darkness wider and deeper, and it was not a friendly darkness. "If you are too much of a coward to land, you will have to go on paddling, Piyannah, or else you will drift backwards on the current. Do you want Dorok to be ashamed of you? Do you want to betray Raki and the feathers, just because you are too lazy to paddle a little further?" My shoulders ached as though they had been flogged. I began to chant a war song, to keep in rhythm, to keep awake. I saw a bar of yellow light reflected in the water. Gradually the darkness dissolved to show the grey ghosts of trees, kind ghosts with whom singing birds were not afraid. Mist swirled up from the lake like smoke. If it had only been smoke, smoke of a fire by which I could sleep, and the warm smoke of a cooking fire that would give me hot broth instead of a strip of pemmican I was too weary to chew. The canoe was too heavy to drag upon the steep bank, so I had to go on until I found a strongly rooted bush where I could make it fast. I could find nowhere dry to sleep. Even under the trees the ground was sodden, but I saw a drift of dead leaves and crawled into it to get warm. I must only sleep a little while. Tomorrow I can sleep, not now. Tomorrow at dawn I can sleep. It was noon before I woke, a noon which blazed with the heat of autumn, whose flames had already begun to colour the woods. I dived into the water, but did not waste strength by swimming. The long sleep had refreshed me. I was greedy for bread, and even pemmican was pleasant to chew. At sunset I had to rest, but dared not sleep. I took a sharp thorn And when I felt my eyelids getting too heavy for me to hold them open, I drove it into my leg until I jerked into wakefulness. It is difficult to lie completely relaxed so that your muscles can gather strength. When the ground is cold and hard, when rain is dripping off the trees, slow, monotonous rain, which makes it more difficult for your body to refuse the sleep for which it aches. Sleep that it knows will be punished by the sharp pain of a thorn. I began to hate my body for tempting me to sleep, and to hate myself for being so unkind to it. The rain stopped before moonrise. The canoe slid forward between dark ranks of trees that were no longer menacing. I pretended that they were people who had come to see whether I was worthy of the feathers. They're sneering at you, Piyannah. Listen, they are saying that Piyannah is a squaw who pretends to be a young brave. Tell your arms, Piyannah, tell the muscles of your back and your thighs that if they plead with you to let them rest, the watchers will hear and mock you. Do not betray me, my arms. Look, the moon has travelled a long way across the sky. Watch for the dawn, which will soon come to tell you that we have won our rest. No, Piyannah, you must not look back. You will see the reflection of the sunrise in the water ahead. They should call it the land beyond the sunrise, that land where people go when their night has been long and they are so very weary. Count the strokes, Piyannah. Each 100 shall make a filament of your brown feather. On and on. The beat of the paddle is getting slow as the heart of a dying man. I can hear a ray pit. Will the sunrise release me before I reach angry water? I shall never be able to carry the canoe, even if it were a wide path without any rocks to climb. The moon is still very bright. No, Piyannah, it is the dawn, Piyannah. I was close to the bank. I think if I had been in midstream, I should have collapsed and let the current snatch me from some of the distance I had gained. I watched my hands making the canoe fast to a tree that grew close to the edge of the water. Slowly and deliberately my feet climbed the bank. I fell face downwards on the kind turf, and sleep wrapped me like a robe of beaver pelts. I thought I was dreaming. There was a fire and the smell of food cooking. I was lying on a heap of dry grasses and covered with a blanket. I sat up and saw Dorok putting another log on the fire. Beyond him the river was red with the setting sun. Raki came as far as this, and so did I, he said. None of the others came further than the place you reached at sunset yesterday. I thought you would reach the same place as Raki and I. That is why I waited here for you. So you're not ashamed of me, oh Dorok? I'm so glad. No, Piyannah, he said gently. I shall never be ashamed of my chief. So I stop this here. This is the first part of the chapter entitled Brown Feather, and it is part 3 of Joan Grant's Scarlet Feather.